Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient.
Hello, resilient listeners, and welcome back. This is Jen Chambers, and I'm here to talk about week 4 of How to Tell Your Story, our series about sharing your story. So today, this is supposed to be the final episode of this 4-week series, but honestly, I was so excited. I've had so much positive feedback. You guys really like this, so I'm going to continue doing this for another 8 more weeks, and maybe more if there's need and interest in it. So thank you very much. I really appreciate the outpouring of love I've gotten for this. It's something that I'm so passionate about. I really want everyone to be able to tell their story. One of the things that I think that people are often asking me is like, so why should I write my story? I don't need to write a memoir. I'm, 32 or 47. I'm not in my 90s. I don't have grandchildren. And I'm not famous. So all of that, yes, it's true. You would definitely have an audience if you were related to the royal family, or if you, vaulted across mountains and broke your legs doing it and became worldwide famous for that. I don't know. I'm totally spitting off the top of my head, obviously. If there was something particularly interesting about you, it would make it universally attractive. But that doesn't mean that your story isn't going to be. You can use this for yourself, for your family. When you write your story, you can use it within your own LinkedIn bio. You can use it to be able to teach classes. It's really important to be able to write stuff so that you can understand yourself better. And that's one of the great things about writing, is that when you're writing about yourself, as you do it, the act of writing it down helps you understand yourself in a different way. So, off my soapbox here. After the past few weeks, we explored week 1, which was finding your story. We identified the powerful moments in your life, and we used a chart to show that, and we picked out several that we thought would be really good to work on. Week 2, we talked about shaping your story. We structured your experience into a compelling narrative, or at least we started that. Week 3, we talked about writing with impact. So we strengthen your words. We're trying to understand that the emotional connection is what people like to read. And now, in week 4, we're talking about sharing your story. We're talking about the most vulnerable and empowering part of the process, putting your story out into the world. Now, again, because we will be continuing this class, this might be something that you're ready to do. This might be something that you want to go back to. And I will definitely spend a little time later talking more about how to get your story into the world. But today, we're going to explore overcoming your fears about sharing your story, how to refine your drafts, and ways that you want to share, whether it's for yourself or for an audience. I like to think that this is the moment where your courage meets action. It's hard to share your story, but it's also freeing. So let's get into it. The fear part, why is sharing it so hard? I hear this from people all the time. What if my story isn't good enough? What if people judge me? What if it's too personal? These are all super valid fears. Of course, sharing your personal story is vulnerable. But here's the thing I want you to remember. Your story is powerful. Somebody out there needs to hear it. You don't know. The metaphor that they often use is, the drop of water in the rippling pond. You have no idea where it's going to go. You really don't. And I can tell you that from my personal experience, having someone come up to you and tell you about how your story changed them is one of the most important and powerful and just absolutely impactful things that can happen to you. The other thing I want you to think about is it's your story, so you get to control how much you share. You get to set the boundaries. You don't have to talk about everything that happened in your life. You talk about the things that you want to talk about. And I also want you to remember that you're absolutely not alone. There is a whole giant community of people who will resonate with your experience. When we share our stories, we give other people permission to do the same. All right, so I have a few writing exercises today. Exercise 1 is reframing your fears. Get a piece of paper, please. And I want you to set the timer for 3 minutes. We're going to write down, and you can write this at the top of your paper if you want, one fear you have about sharing your story, and one reason why your story is important anyway. So, for example, if your fear is, what if people don't take my experience seriously? You can reframe it and say, someone who needs this will feel seen and understood. Your fear could be, but I'm not anybody special. And you could reframe that to say, people are touched by the things that I share because my experience is like the human experience. You're never alone. You can keep going in that way if you'd like, but I really want you to think about reframing the fears you have around it. It's funny, one of the best things, but also one of the worst things about when you turn your story in, when you're done writing your story, is that you're done. It's the best thing, you're done, but it's also the worst thing because then it's done and you can't change anything. But that's okay because your life is a continuum. Even if you write your story and you find that there needs to be more later, you can do that. It's absolutely up to you. Even in this modern times, even if you put it out in print, you can change it, you can make a new edition. It's easily fixable. The most important thing to remember is that your voice matters. So don't let yourself give in to doubt. The fears are all that. It's just noise. It's just fear. Fear is a message to pay attention. But that doesn't mean you have to follow it. All right, so now we're going to talk about revision a little bit. And you can make as many drafts as you would like. I don't tell anybody that you have to do 3 drafts or 6 drafts. Whatever makes you feel comfortable. Sorry about that. I have a cat rampaging through my workspace here. One of the things that I like to do, no matter how many drafts you do, is by the time you have what you have considered your final draft, if it's a short story, if it's a, one chapter, if it's the entire book, I like to let it rest. Let it rest. It's like bread proofing, right? So you have to wait for it to rise. You have to wait for your brain to calm down and for all the thoughts to settle and make sense. It's really, really hard, especially when you get done with something that's meaningful, to allow for that rest. But it's incredibly important because it can help you be a little bit removed from any piece that you write. Not that it's less important, but you're less emotionally invested in it so that you can look at it with a little bit more of a critical eye. So here are 3 steps that you can try to strengthen your piece. If you see something after it's rested that you want to change. The first one is the 1-sentence test, or like the elevator test. Basically, Can you sum up your story into what they call the elevator pitch? What's your story's core message in one sentence? Imagine yourself talking to a literary agent or a bookstore owner, or your target reader, and say what your book is about in one sentence. It's not easy, and this is a really fun thing to use ChatGPT for. They can give you, if you ask ChatGPT for 15 different ideas, you're going to come up with something that's close to what works for you and cut and paste and find what works. But if not, if you can't, then refine your focus in the book. See what maybe you need to take out or add to make it more clear. So the second step that you can do, and this one's really great, it's to read it out loud one more time. Listen for awkward phrasing. Listen to see if you just used really complicated sentences or big words where you didn't need to use big words, or places where you tend to tell, not show, where the emotion doesn't come through because you just say it and you don't explain how it felt. You can also use technology to your advantage in this way. If it's on like a Google Doc, you could have it read it to you, then you don't have to read it out loud. But whatever works for you. And the third thing that you can do is to get a trusted reader. Share your piece with someone you trust who is going to give you honest and supportive feedback. You don't have to hire an editor. You can do anything you want. Again, it's your story. It's choose your own adventure. But it's always nice to have just another pair of eyes. So before you share your story with anyone else, ask yourself after you've done your reading and checked your focus. Ask yourself, does your story have a clear beginning, middle, and end? Does it all make sense? Does it express my real voice? Is it authentic? Did you take out any flowery phrases or unnecessary words? Or did you leave, the $10 words in there when a $2 word would work? And the last one is, are you comfortable with what you're sharing? Personally, I can tell you that when I wrote my book about being brain injured, it was really, really hard. And I shared this at the beginning of the series. It was really hard because I wasn't, first of all, far enough removed from the injury itself for it to not be extra painful. But secondly, I didn't feel like I wanted the world to know that it was me who had those feelings. So I projected it instead onto my two main characters. Now, I was fooling no one but myself. I'm sure everybody's like, yeah, sure, these are these characters. It's not, even though I did do a lot of research and I spoke to a lot of other brain injured people, it mostly was me. But that's not that bad. It turned out to be a good thing. But because I wasn't comfortable doing it that way, I made my memoir sort of a narrative, creative, nonfiction piece instead. Fiction/nonfiction. I don't even know what that would be called. It's fiction, but pretty thinly veiled, let's say. But it was my first book, so hopefully I get a little grace there. But now I want to talk to you about how you share your story. There's definitely not a one-size-fits-all approach. So here's a few different options you can do. For you only, if you're doing it as far as just for you, or maybe a loved one, but mostly just for you, do these exercises and keep your story in a journal or write a letter to yourself. Do your memoir as a series of private letters. You could record yourself reading it and then save the audio as a personal keepsake for you or for your relatives or just to have. And doing it like this can help you use it as a tool for healing, even if you never ever share it publicly. And that's good to remember. Even if you intended at one point to share it publicly, you never have to. This is for you. The second way you can share your story would be with close friends or family, or if you're in a support group or a 12-step group, or just a writing group. You could also post in a private online community where people understand your journey. So for me, maybe I talk about chronic illness, so I speak about it, write about it in another group full of chronic illness survivors. You could also publish it for a wider audience. You could submit your story to lots of places, including, shameless plug, Woven with Light, Mended with Gold. Yes, I'd love to read yours, and I would love, love, love to be able to share it, because I think that's so important. But there are a million places that you could send them. And we'll speak about that in the coming weeks. There's a lot of different places that you can, and it's so much less scary than you might think to be able to submit things. You can post some excerpts or even a full piece on social media or a blog. I don't know a lot of people that blog anymore, but I know a ton of people who do stuff on Substack. You could even release your entire memoir on Substack. You could write an article for a website or a publication, something focused on resilience or something focused on whatever your book is about. Like if you had a main theme, something that's thematic for you. And you could talk about your story on a podcast. Hey, you could even email me, and maybe you could have it on my podcast. I know, shameless plug again, sorry. But there are a million different ways. You could write it for a newspaper as opinion pieces. There's no wrong way to share your story. You could even, I have one client who wanted to write their story as a graphic novel, and although I'm definitely not an artist, I could give them some guidance there, and it was so cool. I just loved seeing it. It was so creative. What matters is that you share your story in a way that feels right for you. And have fun with it. Be creative. Maybe you want to write your story as a series of letters that you write to yourself and then send them through the mail. And then you bind them in a book. Who knows? You can do anything you want. There's no wrong way to share it. You could do it all audio. You could do it. You can definitely write it on your phone. You could publish it as an ebook. You could do it as a series of workbooks or small books. Honestly, there's so many options. But what matters is that you share it in a way that feels right for you. So now I want you to think about, you can write this down. We're choosing your next step here as far as your story. The first question is, what level of sharing feels right for me? The second is, who would benefit from hearing my story? That's a really important one. And any editor or publisher is going to ask you who your audience is. Who's your target audience? And the last thing to think about is, what's the first step that I can take today? Even if the step you take is just saving your outlines and organizing your stuff in a folder on your desktop, or sending your almost finished manuscript to your best friend, that's progress. This has been such a powerful series, and I'm so excited that we get to continue. But I want to leave you with this today. Your voice matters, and your story has meaning. And I really, really hope that you realize that you are not alone. Every time someone shares their experience, somebody else out there feels seen and validated and inspired to share their own story. If you're ready to submit to me, you can find all the details in the show notes, of course. I would love to read what you've written. And we'll speak in the next few weeks about different parts of story, different parts of writing memoir too, of course. And we'll talk a lot more about different ways to submit and I haven't written it yet, so we'll see where we go. But if this series has helped you, let me know. Send me a message or share your thoughts or tag me on Instagram at Jennifer_Chambers_. Thank you for being here. I love talking about writing, and so I'm so excited to be able to talk to you about it. Thank you for writing. Thank you for showing up for yourself. I just can't wait to see where your story takes you. And I'm excited to see where this series is going to go. Until next time, take good care of yourself and keep telling your story.
Sometimes we have to start over. Sometimes we have to fight back. Sometimes it's all too much. Lost inside the black. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient. Sometimes we need to lift the voices of those who've overcome and expose the ones that made the choices to stay and fight, not run. Our story